Marcus Chen pushed his thick glasses up his nose as he trudged through the overgrown lot behind the abandoned electronics factory. The 16-year-old had been coming here for weeks, searching through the industrial waste for salvageable computer components. While other kids his age were playing sports or hanging out at the mall, Marcus preferred the solitude of this forgotten place where he could hunt for treasures without judgment. The metal detection app on his modified smartphone buzzed insistently as he approached a cluster of twisted metal beams. Something large and metallic lay buried beneath years of accumulated debris and creeping vines. Marcus set down his worn backpack, pulled out a small folding shovel, and began carefully clearing away the vegetation. What he uncovered made him stumble backward in shock. A sleek, crystalline pod, roughly the size of a small car, lay embedded in the earth. Its surface was covered in intricate geometric patterns that seemed to shift and pulse with a faint inner light. Clearly, this was not of human origin. Marcus had read enough science fiction to recognize what he was looking at, but seeing actual alien technology with his own eyes left him breathless. His hands trembled as he circled the craft, taking photos with his phone. The hull appeared to be made of some kind of smart material that reflected light in impossible ways. Strange symbols were etched along what might have been a door or hatch, glowing with the same soft luminescence as the geometric patterns. As Marcus leaned closer to examine the markings, a sound froze his blood. It was faint but unmistakable. A whimpering cry that spoke of pain and desperation. Something alive was trapped inside. His scientific curiosity warred with common sense. Every movie he had ever watched screamed that approaching alien technology was a terrible idea. But that sound, so similar to a puppy in distress, tugged at something deep in his chest. Marcus had always been drawn to wounded creatures. His bedroom back home was practically a veterinary clinic for injured birds, stray cats, and abandoned animals his mother pretended not to notice. The crying grew weaker, more desperate. Marcus pressed his hands against the pod's surface, searching for some kind of opening mechanism. The material felt warm to the touch, almost organic. As his palms made contact, the geometric patterns began to brighten, responding to his presence. Suddenly, a section of the hull dissolved into shimmering particles, revealing a dark interior. The smell hit him first. Ozone, metal, and something else. Something wild and clean like mountain air after a storm. Cautiously, Marcus activated the flashlight function on his phone and peered inside. What he saw nearly made him cry out. Curled in the far corner of the pod was a creature unlike anything from Earth, yet hauntingly familiar. It was roughly the size of a large dog, covered in thick fur that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The fur was deep black with threads of silver that caught the illumination from his phone like starlight. Its limbs were longer and more elegant than any terrestrial animal, ending in paws that bore retractable claws. But it was the face that stopped Marcus cold. Intelligent golden eyes, far too knowing for any animal, stared back at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. The creature's muzzle was elongated like a wolf's, but shorter and more refined. Its ears were large and pointed, currently flattened against its skull in obvious distress. Heavy metallic restraints bound all four of its limbs, connected by chains to anchor points within the pod. The metal looked different from the craft itself, cruder, more utilitarian. These were not part of the original design. Someone had chained this creature here and left it to die. Marcus felt a surge of anger so intense it surprised him. He had never been the type to get into fights or stand up to bullies, but seeing this magnificent being trapped and abandoned awakened something fierce in his normally gentle nature. The creature watched as Marcus carefully climbed into the pod. Despite its obvious fear, it did not growl or bare its teeth. Instead, it seemed to study him with an intelligence that was disturbingly human-like. When Marcus extended his hand slowly, Palm up in the universal gesture of peaceful intent, the creature's ears twitched forward slightly. Up close, Marcus could see the full extent of its suffering. The restraints had rubbed raw wounds on its legs. Its breathing was shallow and labored. A strange, bioluminescent fluid that might have been blood had pooled beneath one injured paw. Worst of all, the creature was clearly starving. Its ribs showed through its dark fur, and its beautiful eyes had the hollow look of prolonged hunger. Marcus pulled out his water bottle and carefully poured a small amount into his cupped palm. The creature's nostrils flared, and it leaned forward eagerly to lap up the liquid. Its tongue was longer than a dog's and had a strange, slightly rough texture, but the gratitude in its eyes was unmistakable. While the creature drank, Marcus examined the restraints more carefully. They appeared to be made of some kind of advanced alloy, probably alien in origin, but not matching the pod's sophisticated construction. The locking mechanisms were complex, but not beyond his understanding. Marcus had always been good with mechanical puzzles, and these locks, while advanced, operated on principles he could grasp. He pulled his electronics toolkit from his backpack and selected a thin probe. The creature watched with intense interest as he began working on the first restraint. Its breathing quickened, not with fear, but with what seemed like anticipation. The lock clicked open. The creature's reaction was immediate and surprising. Instead of trying to flee or attack, it brought its freed limb up to nuzzle Marcus's hand. The gesture was so gentle, so grateful, that Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. Working more confidently now, he freed the other 3 restraints in quick succession. The creature stretched each limb carefully, wincing at muscles that had been immobilized for who knew how long. When it tried to stand, its legs buckled, too weak to support its weight. Marcus didn't hesitate. Despite the creature being nearly as large as he was, he carefully lifted it in his arms. It was surprisingly light for its size, another sign of its malnourished condition. The creature nestled against his chest with complete trust, its warm body trembling with exhaustion and relief. Climbing out of the pod while carrying his alien burden proved challenging, but Marcus managed it through sheer determination. Once outside, he gently set the creature down on the soft grass and opened his backpack. He always carried emergency supplies when exploring: energy bars, water, a basic first aid kit. It wasn't much, but it was what he had. The creature accepted small pieces of energy bar with obvious hunger, though it ate slowly and carefully, as if afraid the food might be taken away. Marcus cleaned its wounds as best he could with antiseptic wipes, and the creature endured the stinging treatment without complaint, seeming to understand that he was trying to help. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus found himself talking to the creature in soft, soothing tones. He told it about finding the pod, about his love of electronics and science, about his dreams of working for NASA someday. The creature listened with rapt attention, its golden eyes never leaving his face. Occasionally, it would make soft, chirping sounds that seemed almost like responses. The shadows were growing long when Marcus realized he had a serious problem. He couldn't leave the creature here alone, weak and injured as it was. But he also couldn't exactly walk into his suburban home carrying an alien wolf and expect his parents to be understanding about it. His mother barely tolerated his collection of rescued Earth animals. The creature seemed to sense his dilemma. It struggled to its feet and took a few shaky steps toward the pod, then looked back at Marcus with an expression that clearly communicated its willingness to return to captivity if that was what he needed. That gesture of selfless trust broke Marcus's heart and sealed his resolve. No matter what complications it might bring to his life, he was not going to abandon this creature. Humanity's first contact with alien life was not going to be a story of cruelty and neglect if he had anything to say about it. Marcus made his decision. He would find a way to help this being, no matter what it cost him. The creature had trusted him completely from the moment their eyes met. Now it was time for him to prove worthy of that trust. As if sensing his thoughts, the creature let out a soft, melodic sound that might have been approval. For the first time since its rescue, something that looked almost like a smile played around its alien features. Marcus gathered his supplies and helped the creature to its feet. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The geeky boy, who had never had a real friend, had found one in the most unlikely place imaginable, and he would not let this magnificent being down. The real adventure was just beginning. 3 days had passed since Marcus smuggled his alien companion into the old garden shed behind his house. His parents, both busy professionals who often worked late, hadn't noticed his increasingly frequent trips to the backyard with food, water, and medical supplies. The creature, who Marcus had started calling Cosmos, for lack of a better name, was recovering with remarkable speed. Marcus had converted the shed into a comfortable sanctuary. He'd brought old blankets, a space heater for warmth, and even rigged up a small LED light system powered by a car battery. Cosmos seemed fascinated by everything Marcus did, watching with those intelligent golden eyes as the boy explained each modification he made to their hideaway. What amazed Marcus most was how quickly Cosmos was learning to understand him. At first, their communication had been limited to gestures and tone of voice. But by the second day, Cosmos was responding to simple spoken commands. By the third day, the alien was anticipating Marcus's needs before he even spoke them. On this particular afternoon, Marcus sat cross-legged on the shed floor while Cosmos rested beside him, head in the boy's lap. Marcus was sketching the symbols he had photographed from the pod, trying to decipher their meaning. Cosmos suddenly lifted his head and made a series of soft, musical sounds while pointing at one particular symbol with a clawed digit. Marcus looked at the symbol more carefully. It consisted of interlocking spirals with small marks radiating outward. As Cosmos continued his musical communication, Marcus began to understand that this symbol represented something important about the aliens' people. Over the next hour, through a combination of sounds, gestures, and drawings in the dirt floor, Cosmos began to tell Marcus his story. His species, which Marcus learned were called the Liralae, were explorers and scientists from a star system many light years away. They traveled the galaxy in small pods like the one Marcus had found, studying different worlds and their inhabitants. Cosmos had been part of a research mission to Earth, tasked with observing human behavior from a distance. But something had gone wrong. Cosmos's musical sounds grew more agitated as he described how their observation post had been discovered by what Marcus realized must have been a secret military organization. Instead of attempting communication, the humans had attacked. Most of Cosmos's pack had escaped, but he had been captured while trying to rescue his injured pack leader. The humans had chained him in his own pod and left him in that abandoned lot, apparently hoping he would die quietly without creating an incident that might expose their existence to the public. They had not bothered to learn that his species was peaceful, that they had no weapons except for their natural claws and teeth. They had simply reacted with fear and violence. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. He had always believed that if humanity ever encountered alien life, it would be a moment of wonder and scientific discovery. The reality that his own species had responded with cruelty and imprisonment was almost too painful to bear. But Cosmos seemed to read his distress. The alien nuzzled against Marcus's shoulder and made soft, comforting sounds. Through gestures, he seemed to be saying that he understood the difference between the humans who had captured him and the human who had saved him. As the days continued, their bond deepened. Marcus discovered that Cosmos possessed remarkable abilities. His hearing was so acute that he could detect Marcus's approach from hundreds of yards away. His sense of smell could distinguish between different emotional states in humans. Most fascinating of all, Cosmos seemed to have a form of limited telepathy. He couldn't read thoughts directly, but he could sense emotions and intentions. This explained why he had trusted Marcus so completely from their first meeting. Cosmos had been able to sense the purity of the boy's desire to help, the complete absence of any harmful intent. It was also why he had shown no fear despite being weak and helpless. Marcus began bringing books to the shed, and to his amazement, Cosmos learned to recognize written language with incredible speed. Within a week, the alien was picking out familiar words from the pages. Within 2 weeks, he was reading simple sentences. His intelligence was clearly far beyond that of any Earth animal, possibly beyond that of most humans. But it was the small moments that meant the most to Marcus. The way Cosmos would curl up next to him when thunder frightened the alien during storms, the soft purring sound he made when Marcus scratched behind his ears, the protective way he positioned himself between Marcus and the shed door whenever they heard unexpected noises outside. Marcus had never had a friend who understood him so completely. At school, he was the quiet kid who sat alone at lunch, who got shoved into lockers by bullies, who was never invited to parties. But with Cosmos, he felt valued and appreciated. The alien listened to his dreams of becoming a scientist, his fears about fitting in, his excitement about new discoveries. In return, Cosmos shared stories of his home world through pictures drawn in the dirt and musical sounds that painted images in Marcus's imagination. The alien world sounded beautiful beyond description. Floating cities that rode wind currents between towering crystal formations, vast libraries where knowledge was stored in living plants that sang their information in harmonious choruses. Families of Liralei who lived in harmony with their environment, using technology that grew rather than being manufactured. But Cosmos also shared his homesickness through emotions that Marcus could feel like physical pain. The alien missed his pack desperately, especially the pack leader who had raised him from a pup. He had been on his first solo mission when everything went wrong, and he blamed himself for not being strong enough or smart enough to escape capture. Marcus did his best to comfort his friend, but he knew that ultimately Cosmos needed to return to his people. The question was, how to make that happen safely when the very humans who were supposed to protect Earth had already proven themselves hostile to alien life. It was on a Friday evening, exactly 2 weeks after the rescue, that Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. He was cleaning Cosmos's wounds, which had healed remarkably well, when he noticed something strange about the alien's fur. In certain light, patterns became visible, the same geometric designs he had seen on the pod. When he pointed this out, Cosmos became extremely excited. Through their now sophisticated system of communication, the alien explained that these patterns were not just decorative. They were a form of biological technology that his species used to interface with their ships and equipment. Marcus studied the patterns more carefully and realized they formed a complex circuit-like design. His electronics knowledge kicked in, and he began to understand that Cosmos wasn't just an alien researcher. He was a living key to technology that could change everything humanity thought it knew about physics and space travel. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just first contact with an alien species. This was contact with a being whose very biology represented scientific advances beyond human comprehension. And that meant that Cosmos was incredibly valuable to the wrong people. As if summoned by his thoughts, Marcus heard the distant sound of vehicles approaching through the woods behind his house. Cosmos's ears perked up and his body tensed. The alien's expression conveyed urgent alarm. He recognized those engine sounds. The military had found them. Marcus's mind raced. They had perhaps minutes before armed soldiers surrounded the shed. Cosmos was still weak, unable to run far or fast. The pod was too far away and probably under surveillance. They needed a plan, and they needed one now. But as Marcus looked into Cosmos's trusting golden eyes, he realized that his alien friend wasn't afraid for himself. The emotion the boy sensed from Cosmos was protective fury. Despite being young and still recovering, the alien was prepared to fight to defend the human who had shown him kindness. Marcus felt a surge of determination that surprised him with its intensity. He had spent his entire life being the weak one, the victim, the one who needed protection. But now he had someone depending on him. Someone who had already sacrificed everything just by trusting a human. Whatever was coming, Marcus would not let his friend down. The skinny, awkward teenager who had never won a fight in his life was about to discover what he was really capable of when someone he cared about was threatened. The vehicles were getting closer. It was time to find out what kind of person Marcus Chen really was under pressure. Marcus grabbed his emergency backpack and helped Cosmos to his feet as the vehicle sounds grew closer. But instead of running, the alien stopped and placed a gentle paw on Marcus's chest. Through their emotional connection, Cosmos communicated something that made the boy freeze in surprise. The approaching vehicles weren't military at all. They were Lyrelay. Cosmos's pack had finally found him. Marcus felt a confusing mixture of relief and heartbreak. His friend would be safe, would return to his people, but their time together was ending. As the sounds reached the edge of the yard, Cosmos began making a complex series of musical calls, clearly communicating in his native language. The response came immediately. Similar musical sounds drifted through the evening air, filled with joy and relief. Marcus had never heard anything so beautiful. It was like listening to a symphony written by beings who understood harmony on a level beyond human comprehension. 3 figures emerged from the tree line, moving with fluid grace that made them seem to float rather than walk. They were clearly adult Lyrelay, larger than Cosmos, but with the same elegant limbs and starlight fur. Their eyes held the same impossible intelligence. But these gazes carried the weight of age and experience. The lead figure, distinguished by intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift across her dark fur, approached slowly with hands, paws, raised in a peaceful gesture. Marcus realized this must be the pack leader Cosmos had spoken of with such devotion. What happened next shocked Marcus to his core. The pack leader spoke in perfectly clear English. "Human child." Her voice was like music made audible with harmonic overtones that seemed to resonate in Marcus's bones. "We have been searching for our young one for many cycles. The debt we owe you cannot be measured by any standard of our people." Marcus stared in stunned silence. Cosmos had never indicated that his people could speak human languages. The young alien moved to his leader's side, and they touched foreheads in what was clearly an important greeting ritual. A rapid exchange of musical sounds followed, and Marcus caught his own name repeated several times in the conversation. When they finished, the pack leader turned back to Marcus with an expression that might have been a smile. "Our young one tells us that you have been more than his rescuer. You have been his friend, his teacher, his protector. This is unexpected." "Unexpected how?" Marcus found his voice at last. The pack leader studied him carefully. "In all our travels across the galaxy, in all our observations of countless species, we have never encountered beings quite like humans. Most species, when they encounter something alien, something different, react with fear or aggression. It is a survival instinct that serves them well." She gestured to the 2 other adults, who moved closer but maintained a respectful distance from Marcus. "When our observation post was discovered by your military, we expected this reaction. Fear, violence, the desire to capture and study us. It is what we have learned to expect from younger species who have not yet learned to see beyond their own world." Marcus felt shame burning in his chest. "I'm sorry about what they did. Not all humans are like that." "Yes." The pack leader's eyes seemed to glow in the growing darkness. "This is what makes your species so fascinating. Most beings are consistent in their reactions, but humans—" She looked at Cosmos, who had moved to stand beside Marcus, clearly torn between loyalty to his pack and affection for his human friend. Our young one was chained and left to die by members of your species. By all logic, he should fear and hate all humans. Yet he tells us that you approached him with nothing but kindness. You freed him, fed him, cared for him, asked for nothing in return. Why? Marcus blinked in confusion. Because it was the right thing to do. He was hurt and scared and alone. What else would I do? The three adult Lyrali exchanged glances that seemed to communicate volumes. Finally, the pack leader spoke again, and her voice carried a note of wonder. What else indeed? Human child, do you understand how rare you are? In a galaxy filled with intelligent species, we have never found people who possess your particular combination of traits. You are individually weak compared to most sapient beings. Yes. You have no natural weapons, no telepathic abilities, no remarkable physical capabilities. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether he was being complimented or insulted. But, the pack leader continued, you have something else. Something that may be unique in all the cosmos. You have the ability to see past your own survival instincts and choose compassion. Even when it costs you. Even when it brings you no benefit. She gestured to Cosmos, who chirped softly. Our young one tells us you risked discovery by your own kind to protect him. You shared your food when you had little. You tended his wounds with your own hands. You made him feel valued and cared for during the darkest period of his young life. Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes. He had never thought of his actions as particularly special. He had just done what felt right. The second adult Lyrali spoke for the first time, her voice deeper than the leader's but equally musical. We have been observing your species for 3 of your years. We have seen terrible things, wars, cruelty, environmental destruction. We have also seen beautiful things, art, music, acts of heroism and love. But, the third adult added, we have never seen what we witnessed in these past weeks. A young human, barely more than a pup himself, caring for an alien creature with such consistent devotion, speaking to him as an equal, seeing past the differences in appearance and biology to recognize the intelligence and emotions beneath. The pack leader stepped closer to Marcus. Human child, your people speak often of what you call first contact with alien life. Most of your fiction portrays it as a meeting between leaders, between governments and official representatives. She touched Cosmos's head gently, and the young alien leaned into the caress while keeping his golden eyes fixed on Marcus. But perhaps the best first contact has already occurred, between a lonely human boy and a frightened alien pup, between two beings who saw past fear to friendship. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was suggesting. You mean, we mean, the pack leader said softly, that you have shown us something about humanity that we had not dared to hope, that despite your capacity for violence and fear, you also possess an even greater capacity for love and acceptance. She paused, seeming to consider her words carefully. Our people make decisions by consensus, and it takes time. But I believe that someday, when both our species are ready, there will be formal contact between the Lyrali and humanity. And when that day comes, it will be because a brave human boy chose kindness over fear. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. His decision to help Cosmos hadn't just saved one alien life, it had potentially changed the entire future relationship between their species. But the pack leader wasn't finished. There is something else. Our young one does not wish to leave you. The bond you have formed. It is precious beyond words. We would like to make you an offer. Marcus's heart leaped with hope, but he tried to keep his expression calm. Return with us to our ship. See our technology, meet more of our people. Learn about the galaxy beyond your world. And when you are older, when you have completed your growth and education, perhaps serve as a bridge between our species. Marcus looked at Cosmos, who was practically vibrating with excitement. The alien had clearly been hoping for this outcome. Marcus started, then stopped. The offer was beyond his wildest dreams. But it would mean leaving his world, his family, everything he had ever known. As if reading his thoughts, the pack leader smiled again. Not permanently, young one, and not immediately. We would return you to your life here, but maintain contact. Think of it as an exchange program between worlds. She gestured to her companions, who began moving back toward the woods. We will not press you for an answer tonight, but know this. What you have done for our young one has marked you as special among humans. You have shown us the best of what your species can be. As the adult Lyrelay melted back into the darkness, Cosmos remained behind for a moment. He approached Marcus and touched his forehead to the boys, just as he had done with his pack leader. In that moment of contact, Marcus felt a rush of emotion that took his breath away. Gratitude, love, hope, and promise all flowed between them. Then Cosmos stepped back and spoke, his voice still young but carrying new confidence. Thank you, my friend, for everything. Marcus watched as his alien friend disappeared into the night, knowing with absolute certainty that this was not goodbye. It was the beginning of something larger than either of them could imagine. Later, as he cleaned up the shed and tried to process everything that had happened, Marcus realized he had finally found his answer to the question that had always plagued him. What made him special? It wasn't his intelligence or his technical skills. It was something simpler and more profound. He had the ability to see the individual behind the alien appearance, to extend compassion across the vast gulf between species, to choose love over fear when it mattered most. As he looked up at the stars through his bedroom window that night, Marcus smiled. Somewhere out there, Cosmos was probably looking at the same stars and thinking of their friendship. And someday soon, Marcus would be among those stars himself, serving as living proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their capacity to care for each other, no matter how different they might be.